Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call Senate Committee on Revenue to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Doñate. Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Chair Neal.
Okay, we have one bill presentation today, which is SB 450. I'm going to turn the gavel over to my Vice Chair, Senator Doñate.
Thank you so much, Chair Neal. I will go ahead and open the hearing on Senate Bill 450. This bill establishes a program for the relocation of persons residing in Windsor Park. And we have Senator Neal presenting, so Chair Neal, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. I am Senator Dina Neal, and I am here to present SB 450. If you guys recall, on April 13th, we had a BDR presentation on this particular measure, and now it is officially a bill, and now we're having the bill hearing. As you know, as stated before, that Windsor Park is a historic community that's been around since the 1966. It was built in 1966 and 1967. And the particular residents, there were a series of phases that were listed in the documentary where certain families moved out, certain families received. There were 45 homes built, which is considered the colloquial baby Windsor. And this bill is to deal with the last 90 residents that still reside in Windsor Park. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through a presentation because I'm going to build a timeline for this hearing so you guys can get a sense of what was going on, how do we arrive here, and why is this the proposed remedy. So I pulled minutes. This is my own research. You guys all know that I work with Boyd Law. However, I brought the research to Boyd Law. And I have particularly taken an interest in identifying minutes and information related to Windsor Park. So you guys all have this first document. So I'm starting with this narrative because there was a resolution passed by the city back in 1966 that basically talked about the neighborhood analysis and how to comply with the Housing Act of 1954. So the Housing Act of 1954 essentially said that they needed to determine whether or not provide assistance for home building under the Office of Urban Affairs. They were required to do a series of things in 1966, and that's the enumerated list. I didn't highlight number one, but the enumerated list says review of existing neighborhood areas, boundaries within North Las Vegas for recertification, information on housing conditions, including location, extent of the blight and potential blight, characteristics of families affected by poor housing, information on conditions of non-residential areas, including location of blight and potential blight. And the reason why I thought that that particular document was relevant is because the homes, as you see the date, this was signed in 1966 during the period of time when Windsor Park was built. What we know and understand is that when Windsor Park was built in the 60s, that the residents did not have a geotechnical study or an engineering study to determine that it was built on fault lines. I have this particular minute here because this shows that this was the planning associated with Windsor Park. As you see, it says the planning director, Charles, presented the final map for Windsor Park, Unit 3, showing the street alignment, Units 1 and 2. So we know that there was a conversation at the city in 1966 about planning this neighborhood. We also know that in 1954, the federal government passed the Housing Act, which said you need to basically stop giving inferior housing to communities of color. That we know for a fact. This next minute that I'm loading, if you see the date that says May 4th, 1970, this is Albert Dunn, who came to the council in 1970, who talked about how he felt somewhat disturbed and isolated because there were no recreation facilities. So at the time, Windsor Park was trying to fight for a park that they ultimately got. But the reason why I wanted to put this in here about Windsor Park and the neighborhood, right? Because this is prior to 1989, is that these residents were always concerned about the quality of their neighborhood. They were always concerned about what services would be provided to them as an African American community coming in, and this is within 4 years of the development. I then put in with the response, which was Mayor Eccles at the time in 1966, talking about not approving the facility at the expense of the Windsor Park pool and making sure that the project was progressing as desired. And so Miss Walker, and I don't know if she's down south, but Annie Walker, who is one of the older residents, 89, I believe she's 89, or she might be 86, but she was there in the 70s, and the pool that they were fighting for in the 1970s then became a pool in the late 80s, and it's named after her. And I'm bringing this up because at the time, they were very much concerned about, I want what everybody else has. I want what all of the other neighborhoods have. We didn't just buy these houses for, $13,000 or $26,000 to say that we don't have a park, we don't have a community center, we don't have a pool, because at the time in the early 60s and 70s, we know there was discrimination, we know that they were segregated neighborhoods, but they still wanted the quality for their own neighborhoods. So I put this in here because if you look at it, this was a continuation of the resolution where basically the city reestablished that they were going to move forward, and then we have this new date. And then I go forward to share another set of minutes with you. Hopefully this has everything in it. So when I go and pull up documents, I try to pull the whole entire thing. So number one, no one can ever say that, number one, I doctored it. That I found documents that were not accurate and that were not complete and that were not in the record. So I put in this one because I want to make note of this particular developer. And the reason why I highlighted this, and I went back and I looked in the record, this is still, I believe this is either 70 or 72. It's because this particular developer, Dasco, that was given this $38 million to then do improvements, off-site improvements for Northern Gardens. I want you to pay attention to that name because that same developer pops up again in 1994. And what I found interesting about it, because when I started searching the history, it is 72. See, I got my dates. I went back looking, okay, everybody's saying, well, how come the contractor didn't remedy it? How come the families couldn't go back to the person who built the homes? That's a really, really good question. So I kept trying to figure out, well, who was playing? Who was doing work back then? And the legislative minutes say that it was not, that they could not identify who that contractor was. That's still a question mark because we haven't been able to, beyond the minutes in 1994, be able to identify exactly who it was, but we do know that this particular builder and developer was building property in 72 yet they were then asked for the 45 homes which were defective in 94. So I put this in here because I'm still trying to build the narrative and the story about what was then authorized for Windsor Park, which we now have a playground in 1978. If you're following my timeline, we have the development built in 66. We know there's no engineering study. None of the residents are aware of this, but we're continuing to build on this property. We're continuing to expand, give them what they're asking for. So the question there was, okay, so why, if we're continuing to build, has no one ever considered doing that environmental study, doing the geotechnical study, doing the environmental study to determine whether or not this land is the right land, right? So I'm building this timeline for you because not only did I work very hard to produce these minutes, but I spent weeks sitting on my computer finding them and putting them all together. And I'm only giving you a snapshot of what I pulled and gave to Boyd Law. So now we're in 1989. This is a very important period of time because we have to start focusing on what was going on in 1989. We find out these homes are sinking because the groundwater was removed. There is now money that's coming into play. Where did this money come from? This $250,000, if you see it, it says $250,000 in FY 90-91, which is CBDG dollars, matched the state grant for Windsor Park. So they came to the legislature and they said, my God, there is a problem. We need money. We're going to match those funds. Moose Arbery was currently the chair of Ways and Means at that time. So I put that in there because this is when the first set of dollars came forward. Mind you, CBDG is federal money. Second, it came from the state. So we have $500,000 roughly that was produced or created, one from the initiative of the city of North Las Vegas to use the CBDG dollars in 1989, and then the state then gave a match. Then we go to November 7th, 1990. And the reason why I put in November 7th, 1990 is because the $500,000 has been appropriated for the Windsor Park project. And what I highlight in here is that Catherine Duncan, which amazes me that this woman is still around because she has been out here advocating for a really long time, they start asking, what happened to the $500,000 that was supposed to relocate these residents? Where is the money? So Councilman Robinson is now here. And for whatever reason, I couldn't find any additional minutes, but Mine Devco, I don't know who this company was, but somehow they won the favor of the residents, that they were somehow going to apply for HUD dollars on their behalf. And then somewhere in there, I'm not sure it ever happened because the residents and the city, which happened to be at the time, they were like, well, you guys agreed for this Mine Devco to go and, find this money for you. Now, mind you, I didn't find any additional minutes on Mine Devco past this period in 1990 where I was trying to figure out what's going on. And as you see, there was a letter from Congressman Bill Bray at the time who said he supported the endeavor to obtain special funding from Congress. Now, there was special funding. So we're in 1990. In 1992, $1 million came from Congress. In 1993, another $1 million came from Congress. And I'm going to speed past this piece, and I'm going to put some other information in the record because I kept trying to figure out, okay, all right, at the time in 1990, they were saying that it would cost maybe $6,500 to move the homes. And so there was a question of, okay, you now have 500 You got 1989, they got 250K from the state. They came back to the legislature and got another 250K. Mind you, they did a match of CBDG dollars. Then they did 1 million in 1992. Then they did 1 million in 1993. And we're still trying to figure out, where did they go? So I put Miss Dorothy Walker up here because you need to remember this name, because she is one of the residents who took one of the homes, the 45 homes, in order to move away. And I want to cite to her because she was outside of Annie Walker, there's Dorothy Walker. Now, Dorothy Walker is back. Now, if you look at this date, we're now December 5th, 1990. What was the prior date? Still asking about the 500K, right? Clear timeline here, where residents are engaged, residents are coming to the meetings, they're asking questions, they're trying to figure out, how can I save myself? We now have Mayor Seastrand, who's saying that there is a letter from Secretary Kemp which outlined that Mine, Devco, and Windsor Park residents request in November 7, 1990, and that there is supposed to be some kind of action. I never understood who this third party was, why this third party was involved, but I'm not even sure that this third party ever did anything of value. I think that's a repeat. So let me go down. So I'm going to go here. Now, we're in 1993. This is very important. That man, Mr. James Hobby, is the one who came to the state legislature and continued to advocate why there was a Windsor Park task force that was created for the Windsor Park residents. Does that Windsor Park task force exist today? Supposedly, yes. One person. He was actively trying to make sure, right, that there was going to be construction for the Walker Park subdivision. Now, mind you, that's what they call Baby Windsor, the colloquialism of the community. I want you to pay attention to this. Mr. Jim Stumer from Dasco Inc. I just showed you Dasco Inc. from 1966. Now they're back in the game in 1993. So they're going to build these houses. Now at this point, according to the record, there was an additional $750K that came in from CBDG. And then, so they were continuing to go back and ask for money. North Las Vegas, when I mentioned before, mayor, it was not mayor, but Theron Goins Brown, councilman, was the one going back and forth, asking for money. So here we go to the legislature. We have April 5th, 1993. They come up, we have AB 329 that makes an appropriation in North Las Vegas for the cost of relocating the residents. They then go, the Director of Intergovernmental Relations lays out that their homes are continuing to deteriorate. They then introduced the project administrator for the city Windsor Park project and indicated the summary of the problem. Mr. Hobby comes back to the table and then says he became the project administrator in 1991, charged with developing a plan of action. The plan was created in 91. Mr. Hobby was able to get an anticipated $75,000 raised from CBDG dollars. They have $1 million that could be raised from a state grant. Mr. Hobby indicates that Congress has allocated $2 million for the Windsor Park project. The city, through the CBDG dollars, has allocated the $750,000, with the state allocating $500,000, $250,000 in 1989, $250,000 in 1991. They're going back for an additional $500K. Then they say this would allow that the city, if approved, this would mean the city would have already raised $3.75 million. And so here's the question. At 1993, why wasn't that enough to remedy the issue? First, they picked homes up. They did four homes. They picked them up and then they moved them. They said, wow, this is way too expensive. We can't do that. So then the second was, we'll do the grants and allow for folks to move, carry their mortgage to another property. With the records that I saw, although people say $100,000, I've only seen $51,500, right? Or a $15,000 revitalization piece. Then after that, there was a third remedy, the 45 homes. And I need you to remember Dasco's name. So I put this in here because Mr. Marvel, anybody remember Assemblyman Marvel? So he's in this hearing and he's asking all these questions. You know, what's going to happen? Chris G is there. She's saying, can Mr. Hobby clarified that the homes were guaranteed by HUD? He then stated that they were supposed to receive a guaranteed HUD loan similar to the FHA. They then lay out that some of the families are deceased. They also then lay out that there would be no means of recovering funds. And then here's the kicker. They said, Mr. Hobby stated that each owner has a 6,000 square foot lot. Now you tell me, if I have a 6,000 square foot lot, I'm realizing my home is sinking. Do I deserve the equivalent or less than the equivalent? Because I can tell you what the 45 homeowners got, and it was less than the equivalent. What they got was somewhere around 1,300 square feet. And Mr. Hobby is back up here. He's reciting the history of everything that's happened before. Chris G's asking all kinds of questions about where's the shared relationship between the city and the state. How come the city hasn't put any money in? This conversation is going on in the 90s. And I'm having the conversation here in 2023 about shared relationships, right? Because it's not to say that they didn't get any money, because they did get money from the feds. So then I want to lay this part out really clear, because Mr. Hobby was explaining that the federal government was engaged. Then he starts to give a snapshot of who these families are. They are senior citizens who are widows or widowers. Some are still paying on a 25 or 30-year loan. And he pointed out that most do not have the funds to pay another loan, and that the city has installed as part of the relocation plan package to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the package, the $15,000 rehab of the home as a deferred loan. So mind you, I said you could either take $51,500, take it, move, have the loan attached, or you could get the $15,000. When I said the documentary, because maybe people don't believe me, because there's a narrative running around these 90 families that it's their fault that they remained in this community. It's their fault that they didn't take the $51,000, and we're going to get there. But I want you to read this, because it said Mr. Hobby came to the state legislature and testified that home insurance for the majority of the residents has been canceled. He noted he gets called monthly about insurance companies canceling Windsor Park residents' insurance, and the homeowners are unable to acquire replacement insurance. The residents are in a real predicament because they cannot sell their home or property, and HUD has redlined the area not to give loans. So you tell me whether or not that homeowner was supposed to figure out a master plan and fight against the fact that, number one, their home insurance was arbitrarily canceled. Then it was redlined. So you tell me what those widows and widowers who are senior citizens were supposed to do. They were seeking help. They're still seeking help. The remedy is still on the table because it has not been effective and it has not solved the problem. And the reason why I'm delivering the timeline to you is because I wanted to be crystal clear about who was doing the work and who was coming to their aid. And although North Las Vegas went to Congress and got federal money, you don't see any minutes in here where North Las Vegas went in and defended the arbitrary cancellation of home insurance. You also don't see any additional dollars outside of the CBDG match grant. I'm just building the timeline for you because I built the timeline for myself so I could understand, why am I taking on this problem? Why am I taking on my own city? Why am I seeking a remedy for families? And it's not fun and games for me. There's no glory that's getting ready to come down. I'm not getting ready to get no crown for helping these families. It's because it's justice and it's the right thing to do. So, we're still in the minutes. So, I wanted to bring this one up because what I thought was so interesting about this was that they were putting liens on the property. And there's going to be another minute that I show where, if you remember the residents on April 13th coming and saying, you know, we're still getting liens on our property for the property not being right. What's so funny is they were leaning them in the 90s, saying that your property is not up to code, your property is not up to par. And their homes were sinking because they were on fault lines. Groundwater was removed every year for about 20 years. I didn't burden you guys with that records, but if you want to see them, it's in my office. I got them all from the state engineer. And so there's a continuing conversation, and I'm bringing this up because Assemblywoman Captioning asked about the Windsor Park, and she brought up, well, there's a Bonanza Greens issue, and they had subsidence problems. So they were able to get help. And then the city responds, yes, they were able to get help because we knew who the developer was. But we couldn't find this one. So I took mental note of that because I thought it was really, really interesting, because I was just like, you know what, go ahead, Assemblywoman Captioning. I was just like, and she still watches me to this day, and I was just like, wow. So there was another city that got another neighborhood that got a remedy, but we can't find the developer for this one. But yet, Dasco keeps coming into play. I'm like, who is Dasco? Who owns Dasco? That's my next research project. So I'm going to skip ahead because I think you're getting the picture, and I'm gonna spell this picture out, because now we are in 1993 September. We now have an ordinance. 1095 is introduced by Councilman Rhodes. This is John Rhodes. And there is an adopting development agreement between the city of North Las Vegas and who? Dasco. And I'm going to keep repeating that, why I want you to pay attention to this, because the next set of minutes, discussion on the Windsor Park issues. Hattie Canty on 2116 Jeffrey Avenue. She was pleased with the way the relocation project had been handled in most respects. However, she complained about how Hampton's home was situated on the lot with the front door facing the side of the neighboring home. Then she said that the size of the lot, Hobby said the size of the lot made that necessary, and if rotated, the placement would not meet the setback requirements. Now, why did I bring up the fact that they had 6,000 square feet? You now have a home where this is your front door, and this is my neighbor's front door. And in a normal home, you're facing where? The street. So you tell me whether or not that was an equivalent home, or whether or not that was substandard for what they had purchased with their own money the first go round. So then we have Dorothy Walker, who comes and says she recovered from a triple bypass surgery. Now that's some serious advocacy when you come after a triple bypass surgery to the city council to say she also received a call from Ms. Hampton, who does not like the way that her house is situated on the lot and that there isn't enough police protection. And then she also asked the council to exert pressure on elected officials for their insurance rates. So mind you, what we were trying to figure out was, well, what does that mean? Were they now being charged extra insurance? So, see Miss Dorothy Walker come up here again? She's complained about the lack of work of progress at the relocation site. So there's a period of time where they're moving these residents between, I would say, 93 and 94. She then talks about the families are still living in the city-provided apartments. Mr. Mike Francisco on Balzar West complained he was fired by DASCO because what the residents told me was that DASCO said, although we're going to help redevelop, we will also hire the residents to work for the company and be a part of it. And he said he was fired. Mr. Philip Ramos is a journeyman carpenter. He also complained that he was laid off from DASCO for no apparent reason, and they said that there was a discrepancy in the payroll procedure. So, mind you, we're reading all of this information, right? We're saying to ourselves, wait a minute now. So new houses are being built. Promises were made. You wonder why the 90 didn't move? They didn't move because they didn't see this as a sustainable effort. They also didn't see it as something where they were going to benefit because the ones who took the 45 homes, it was substandard. So they were like, well, we'll continue to fight, not wait, but continue to fight it out and see what would happen. So then we have another city council minutes. They go and they're talking about, in conjunction with items on their agenda, the rehab of the Windsor Park homes will cease due to cost overruns. Dorothy Walker then comes in and asks if DASCO will be obligated to repair items when the associated contract was active. David Peacock comes in, still talking about the construction. He's still requesting the city to clean up vacant parcels. Does that sound familiar from April 13th? Because I swear to you, the residents constantly talk about that. Because the parcels that were vacated were then owned by the city. And those vacant parcels were not owned by them, but then they started to be surrounded by vacant parcels that they felt, well, whose responsibility is it to clean it? Still an argument today, and this we're not even to 2023. Then we have, they asked, Patrick Smith asked, is all the state money expended? Now, mind you, by this time, they had at least $3.5 million. For whatever reason, my dad was at this meeting, so apparently he was asking questions. And I guess the legacy continues of some Neil sitting in the middle of Windsor Park asking questions about where is the money. And then Patricia Alson reported the ground is still shifting beneath her home and her water main broke. The city repaired the main, but the remaining hole wasn't filled properly. She too complained about the vacant lots and the teenagers using drugs, and then she requested a burned out street light on Constance and questioned which phase of the project she'll be in to be relocated. Willie Mae Scott on 2108 West Cartier complained about being unable to lock her front door due to the earth's shifting. And then we have Arbery applauding the council for its decision to cease rehabilitating the homes. However, he felt DASCO Inc. should have looked at homes prior to them being moved in order to ascertain the cost of relocation. So what does it seem like is going on? There's relocation without proper planning. There's relocation using a developer from 1966 who's now a part of this movement, and the residents are saying, I don't understand what's going on, but my house isn't right. Then Neva Douglas, 1994, March 2nd, asked Dasco if who would be responsible for repairing items that were previously overlooked or were not completely repaired. And the assistant city manager Henson replied that some items will be covered in the warranty and that will be received at the close of escrow. And I want you to take note of that because Miss Dorothy Walker keeps showing up at meetings. And what's so crazy about her continuing to show up at the meeting is that this Windsor Park Task Force, which is responsible for managing the relocation, they're still asking questions on the timeline of the relocation, and we're now in June 15th, 1994. We started in 1993, and it's funny how someone can continue to say that it's their fault that the 90 didn't leave. Would you leave on a shaky note? Or do you want certainty in your life or do you want uncertainty? Because I want certainty that I'm gonna leave my existing home and I'm gonna get something of value. I'm not gonna have to fight over, will it be repaired? Will you fix it? This particular person, this company you hired, and all of a sudden nothing's right. So they stayed. So I want to make that clear because there's a narrative floating around that it's their fault. And I was, when I found out that that was the narrative running around, that it was their fault, I really got mad. So I was just like, well, I'm going to get that all the way right. I'm going to load all the minutes. And so you're going to be absolutely clear that I got the city council minutes. I have the legislative minutes. I have the congressional record. And there will be no contest as to the proof. Now I want you to read about Ruby Hampton on 1608 June Street. She informed the council that she was unable to contact anyone at Dasco to attend to unresolved problems in her Windsor Park home, and specifically she complained about the ceiling, the squeaking floor, the paint in the bathtub, and the quality of water. Now you tell me, should the 90 have stuck it out and fought or not? Because that's why they're fighting today. And that's why they're not giving up. And I think God is keeping Miss Walker, Annie Walker, alive because Dorothy Walker passed away because she is one of the original residents who stood at these city council meetings over and over and over and over again saying, what we got was not right. What we got was not just. What we got is not a remedy. And so I can tell you this, if I continue to hear that the residents, it's their fault that they stayed, somebody gonna have to give me bail money because it's lying. It is lying. It is open-faced lying. And the point is, I'm that kind of advocate where, okay, I'm not just gonna say it, I'm gonna prove the truth. And I'm going to show you the truth because I am tired of having to fight for families against their own city. I am not going to sell my own community down the river. When they come and ask me for help, I'm going to stand with them and I'm going to fight for them. And I'm putting all this in the record because I want to make absolutely clear that they are not making up their story. They are not in denial about what's going on. And now we go to part 2. So when I landed across this, I was just like, you know, this is awesome because I went looking at Congress, and you know how hard it is to find anything on the congressional record. You just might need a prayer. So I made sure, I was like, let me get the full color copy because I don't want anybody to tell me that, oh, I'm not sure where she got that from. Now you know where I got it from. It says February 16th, 1995, U.S. Depository Property. and I went and found it. And so here we go. We have Senator Malinsky, and this is Mr. Goins, Theron Goins Brown, who's up there. And this is, he's giving a little bit of background. He lays out the history. He talks about the money, and because I'm always following the money. In August, he talks about, this is 95, he said, we responded to residents' request. U.S. Congress responded by allocating $2 million in special purpose grants in 91, 92. State of Nevada gave us $500K in state funds, 1989, 91. The city of North Las Vegas has provided $760,000 in CBDG grant in the fiscal year 90, 92, 93, in excess of $221,000, with a total $3,260,500. So they're back at Congress. This is how much they've accumulated. So now they're back at Congress in committee. This is when I was talking about Senator Reid. And they said, we're just asking for $4 million. I want you to do the numbers, because if there was $4 million, they really need 14. Now, mind you, how much have they accumulated? 3.2. They go back, they ask for $4 million. They're asking for 14. I don't see anything that, except for them getting the $4 million, because I went and looked in the minutes. So she continues, this is still part of the record, and she's still laying out in the record all of the history. And then she put some additional documentation in the record on how much money the new construction for 89 homes times 50, and then she lays out where they got this 14 million from. This is 1995. So the minutes continue. He closes it out. He says, thank you for your advocacy. He moves on. Then I go looking in 1995, right after the hearing at Congress, and I'm like, okay, well, let me see what happened at the city. Let me find out what happened. This is what happened. They got a portion of the money. They got $3 million. So based on that, we're now at 6.2. Then they ratify it. Then I go back. I'm like, okay, let me check. April 9th, April 5th, 1995, they get another $1 million. So we're now up to what, 7? So then I was like, okay, so why are they going back to the legislature? They have $7 million. They went back to the legislature in 1995. Moose was still chairing because he chaired, he stayed in the assembly for 26 years. So he was there. So there's Assembly Bill 348, which makes an appropriation to the city of North Las Vegas for costs of relocating the residents of Windsor Park. So the state's been involved. It's funny because the comment that was made to me was, it's about time the state got involved in the work. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Because we clearly have been engaged, just not under me, just not asking you for 20 million, which is in the current SB 450. But why do you think I'm asking for that? Because you saw in that previous record, it was about $221,000 that was actually city funds, right? Then it was $760,000 CBDG, right? So those were matched. So when we talk about what Congress did, what the state did, and who keeps coming back asking for money, is this a shared responsibility or not? There's also questions on, what did you do with the existing money? How did you effectively use it? Because what it looks like is you built poorly built homes after after their other homes were sinking because of groundwater removal. And then when they came to you and complained, you said, I can't help you. So why am I building the case about who is responsible, and why am I putting the onus, the bulk of the onus, on the city? Because I feel like it's time to step up and remedy this problem. The state has been at the table. We've consistently been at the table. And I want to highlight this page because it says Ms. Brown stated that the total cost of the Windsor Park revitalization project is $16 million. There's $6.7 million, which has been funded by HUD, the state of Nevada, and the city of Las Vegas. Wasn't that interesting? A whole other city that wasn't their city put in money. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I love being a researcher. I probably should get a job doing this. Anyway, so then I continued through the minutes. Chris G, same characters. They're asking about what's going on. Why are you back? Why are you still asking us for money? And the residents know that something is wrong, and they don't want to move. So then here's Councilman Theron Goins again talking about the engineering report. He then also mentioned in the minutes, because they were like, why is it costing so much? And they were like, well, we have consultant fees. We're paying a consultant. We're paying engineers. And I'm like, so you eating the money with people who cannot help these families. And then they're saying, well, what's the current bid? It's about $69,000 per home. $69,000 per home to move, to build, right? What's going on? And I'm gonna get to the part that I really love, because this is just building a timeline, because I am very, very clear that I want to talk about where money went. So let's look at June 21st, 1995. They get a letter of support from the Housing Authority of the City of North Las Vegas for submission of a proposal to the U.S. Department of HUD, basically to demolish. So now we have a demolition. Neva Douglas is back at the city council saying on 1604 June Street, she was advised that her home was the one that was rehabbed by Dasco, and after less than 2 years, her paint is peeling. And what is her recourse? The city manager says the paint is not warranty, and there is no means by which the city can require Dasco to repaint a project that was completed more than a year ago. Now let me ask you a question, because I'm building this record because this bill is important. These families are important to me. If this was federal money that was used to develop this, why isn't there a remedy? Why wouldn't the conversation be like, listen, Dasco, go back and repaint these homes? We literally went and asked Congress for this money to move them to these homes. Would that not have fallen into a question of whether or not this company had appropriately built these homes? Why is the paint peeling and you just getting in the house? I've been in my house for 12 years. The paint that was in my original, when I bought it, is still on the wall and has not peeled. I don't have any questions about the bathtub, talking about the bathtub no longer has the paint that supposedly was on it. Are you kidding me? And so my question is, whose responsibility is this? Either you advocate for your people or you do not. But if you are representing people, we're talking about your own citizens, are you supposed to go for back to them or not? Because to me, this is the moment where you say, Dasco, you've been paid. We've given you money. You've built these homes. Go in there and fix it. Why? Because they deserve it. Why do they? Is that a selfish complaint to say that I don't want to live this way after I just moved from my sinking home? No, it's not. And I'm laying this record out because I'm really tired of the excuses, and I'm tired of the statements that somehow these families miss their golden ticket to leave. So now we have the quick claim deeds. We have the approval of the construction project extended to some Harvey company, and it says that we're going to do an additional 25 homes not to exceed 2 million. So I kept wondering, okay, you just got 4. You have a total at this point roughly 6.7 million. You can't let it exceed. You have spent money already. Now we're saying this can't go beyond this particular space. So now we're December 20, 1995. We have another quick claim. That's actually a repeat of the minutes. Then we go back, and this is the one that's really good. So Fannie Mae somehow gets involved. So remember when I was asking about the CBDG dollars in the budget accounts, and I was asking about the Fannie Mae money? So I was inspired, because I was just like, well, maybe I missed something. Let me go back and find what I need. So I find out that there's an allocation of CBDG dollars, and there is supposed to be in the amount of $300,000 annually over a 10-year term for Windsor Park. And there was a authorization for medium-term financing up to $4 million in general obligation bonds, and it was a resolution. So I was like, wait a minute. So we have a plan to do $300K every year. I find there was a final action, so there's no question that this was not theory. There was a final action because these are minutes. Then I have an ordinance that was passed, 1303. Let me ask you, does that match? That matches 1303, right? So then I went and found the bond. I was like, okay, well, let me find the bond. Let me look up what was going on, because there's this bond that keeps showing up in the publicly adopted budgets, which keeps referencing this $4 million general obligation bond. We're all the way in 2023, and I'm going to show you, because I need you to pay attention to that $4 million general obligation bond, because it's still in existence. It didn't expire in 10 years. That's the other thing that I thought was interesting. So then I started looking. I said, okay, wait a minute. I always have to get my backup. Department of Taxation then says the request of the City Council of North Las Vegas for medium-term financing for $4 million has been received, and it has been approved. And then I said, okay, well, what happened though? Like, where's this $300,000 that's supposed to be accumulating every year in order to move these families? Where's the money? And why haven't the families been moved? If that's the case, so now we go to part 3. So here's the bond again. And then 4 million, because we just did that. Now I want to go to the really interesting stuff that I found, because you know, whenever I find something, I just get real excited, because I will hunt it down like a dog. I will find it. I will search it out. And you know what I found? I found this Las Vegas Sun story from July 6, 1999. And I was like, man, this is awesome. What does it say? It says the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, purchased $4 million general obligation bond in February that made it possible for the city to relocate homeowners, which made it quicker than originally planned, and the city has to repay the money over 10 years. And Fannie Mae's involvement has been expedited by a process of 15 years. So who owns the bonds? Fannie Mae. What is in the budget? A Fannie Mae line item that is associated with these dollars. And I was like, well, this is the best thing, right? Because I was just like, not only do I have the minutes that say it happened, Then I have a news story in 1999 that for real says it happens. Now we're in 2002. And it says that Treasurer Van Horn pointed out that there was $5 million savings in the Special Purpose Revenue Fund, but approximately $1.6 million are Windsor Park bonds that have not been spent. I want you to keep that number in your mind. So there's no movement, right? Nobody else is moving at this point, but we're in 2002 and there's 1.6 million left. So then I went looking. So there was this plan, and it's strange because this is one that there was, I guess, a consolidated plan. It was a regional housing group, and we haven't been able to track this one. I'm still hunting for it. So there was a meeting. Still, it was an agenda item in 2002, 2004, due to the subsidence. It looks like it says that there was a CBDG pre-award. Now you see the date, 2000 to 2004. So there was another set of CBDG dollars that went somewhere. I don't know. I haven't been able to identify it. I am still on the hunt for this particular allocation. And she loaded it in there twice. And now I wanted you to pay attention to this because this is Miss Myrtle Wilson. She gave this to Boyd Law. And this, I want you to look at the date on this because it's postmarked. So it's 2022. And I don't know where this came from, but apparently she thought it was important to provide to us. And this is a Windsor Park history that supposedly she got in the mail. She made sure she copied the envelope and gave it to us. And this was a history that was sent to her. What I found interesting about it was that for some reason, there is a total of $14 million in that document that I kept trying to figure out what do you mean it's 14 million? So wait a minute. So there was $14 million accumulated, and I was like, is that the Fannie Mae bond generating money every year from 1998 to 2022? Because I need to understand how much money is being generated from this document. And then I said, okay, well, let me go back and check 2014, which was the last time. Now, you saw that other piece, right? So I want you to take note of this fund, which says 208 Community Development, because this was the publicly adopted budget that I went in. What was the year that I just told you where they said Treasurer Horn said there was 1 point? Yeah. So now we're in 2014, right? So there's an unused fund balance of 1.7 million. At this point, they're in a recession. They're saying, can we use this money? City attorney, which happens to be Sandra Douglas Morgan, says no. There's a fund balance that consists of non-spendable 2.6 million in land held for resale, which are the land. And then the remainder of the funds is primarily to support Windsor Park. So then I said, all right, okay, let's go there. So now we're here. So let me take you here. Because now I want to take you there. You remember that fund, right? I hope you remember that fund. I want you to see that fund show back up right here. So we have Fannie Mae. And let me make sure you can see this though. Because beginning fund balance, you see beginning fund balance? You see revenue, you see expenses, you see ending fund balance. You see that this belongs to not me. I didn't manufacture this document. I didn't find it in a ditch and then figure out, oh my God, let me figure it out. So we have beginning fund 811, right? Then you have, let me go back up there and show that too. We have expense column, right? So the expense column then says, how much was expended? $467,000. What's the end fund balance? $344. Then we have, this is CBDG. This is Fannie Mae. So $854, $265 is expended, $589,606. I've asked the residents, did anybody move in 2015? Was your house rehabbed in 2015? Let me know, because I need to know if your house was rehabbed. Please tell me. Let me know if you got any money. And then it's funny because this shows up exactly the same. So I was like, okay, well, 2015 to 2016, the numbers look exactly the same. No pause there. I go to 2017, 2018, and then I see this, and this is so confusing to me. Is this confusing to you? Because it says that there's $1 million, doesn't it? And then it says that it's still Ordinance 1303. Did you see? I showed you Ordinance 1303. And then it says that there was, in December 7th, 1998, $4 million general obligation bond. We know who purchased it, Fannie Mae. So are we past 10 years? Or are we right at 10 years? Okay. But there's $1 million. Okay, so then I said, all right, well, let me go check, because it's publicly adopted budget, which means it should have been audited, right? So that means it probably, it's common practice for a budget to be audited. If it's not, I don't know, maybe I'll start working for city government one day. So then I said, okay, wait a minute now. Now, I have to go back, because I keep having to, so we have the adopted, right? We have actual, projected, adopted, variance. Okay, so I was like, all right, I'm tracking. So we have Windsor, that said actual, right? Remember that first column said actual? So that's 6,000. This, no actual, adopted, projected, and then it's like, I don't understand. Wasn't there just $1 million? Was it $1 million? I wasn't sure, because I was just like, maybe the million, maybe I'm imagining the universe that I live in, and maybe that's not true. So then, here we go, 2018, 2019. Here's $2.5 million. Is that the same ordinance? That's the same ordinance that I showed you. I also showed you the news story. So I'm like, okay, it's $2 million. Last year said $1 million. I'm not tracking any of this, because I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why these numbers don't match. I'm not crazy. I know this, so I now have beginning fund balance, right? I have revenues, I have expenses, I have ending fund balance. So here is CBDG. So I have 811,000. I have 467 in revenue, so I'm thinking, okay, Fannie Mae is still generating money. And then I have an expense of $1.2 million. On who? In 2018, 2019. Now, I know this money is federally tied, because I've proved the connection for myself, and I have the documents. So I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not understanding. I'm not tracking. So here's Windsor Park budget, 170, revenue expended. Here is the Fannie Mae again, ending fund, beginning fund balance 854, revenues 265. So I'm like, are there two things generating money? Because it looks like it, doesn't it? And then you have an expense column of $1.1 million. What year was that? Exactly. So where is that money, and where are those families that were moved with that money? Because you saw, I showed you the city council minutes where it said you cannot spend this money on anyone else but Windsor residents. It's federal money. It's not yours. It's federal. So where is it going? So then I said, okay, well, let me just spend a little bit more time because, and here's why I even started it. I was like, well, if I'm going to come to the table and talk about this, I didn't want to be wrong because I thought it was $1.7 million left. Only reason why I started looking is because I was just like, well, I don't want to be wrong. I just want to make sure when I go to the table, I'm citing to the right amount of money. Now we're in the next year, we see 1.2 million, roughly, right? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. That was the prior year you saw 2 million, right? You also saw an expense of 2 million. But this is another year. So now I'm in 2019, same thing, actual, adopted, projected, adopted, amount, percent, variance, right? You have the Fannie Mae CBDG, 7-Eleven, expenses, 7-Eleven, and in fund balance doesn't say zero, doesn't say anything actually, doesn't say 6, it doesn't say anything. Then there's 500, then a 500 expense. I think you guys get my point, right? Why am I doing this trail on the money? Why am I making this argument? Because then I show up in the following year and then this then is the number. Tell me, okay, you're a solid, leader, you know what's right, you know what's wrong. It's appropriate to ask questions. It's appropriate to try to figure it out, right? Because their family's on the line. Trying to understand there is money, I don't know where it is. The ordinance is still in play. It's still being reported. And now we go to beginning fund, and you have what? Now we see the magical zero. Then we see 595, 250, and then 345 in fund balance. All I'm trying to do is figure out how much money they have left for these Windsor Park families, because there were CBDG dollars, there was a Fannie Mae general obligation bond that was supposed to generate $300,000 every year, and I'm trying to figure out where's the money. Was it spent? Who was it spent on? Because I know federally it couldn't have been spent on anyone else but them. So I'm going to stop there. Why am I going to stop there? Because I think I've told you enough. I think you get the picture. Because I could go all the way up. Environmental Justice Act, because it is time to give these families a remedy. The bill asks for $10 million. It's $10 million from the state, $20 million from the city of North Las Vegas. And then it lays out that they must be moved as a group. Also, that the home that they're built must be the equivalent of what they have now. The housing division will manage this. It will not be managed by the city of North Las Vegas, and you can understand the reason why. I have no interest in that happening, because when I looked through the history, it didn't seem to go right the first time. Then there's a provision in here for the housing division to create a special program, because what we know for a fact is there are now people in here that have a mortgage. New Latino families who purchase these homes. And we have to find a remedy for them as well. And so it establishes that the housing division will create an assistance program with the mortgage. So they'll still continue to pay a mortgage. They can't be relieved of the mortgage, but we have to create a special program. And then it also says that the power, sewer, and other connection fees have to be rolled, meaning the current fees that they're paying. And that it also says that if when the families vacate, that it has to revert, and I put a covenant, so it reverts to park space. Why is it reverting to park space? The families for many years have been wanting park space. And it only made sense to allow that a covenant run with the property, so, because they own it. Now, I know you're probably going to ask, well, what about the city of North Las Vegas that owns the other vacant parcels? Well, I guess they'll be blocked in by the park space that's going to be on the other side, because at the end of the day, the reversion will not be back to the city of North Las Vegas. The reversion will go to the state. The reversion is that it will turn into park space. And then I know the next question is probably like, well, how is it that they can build anything in park space? I don't think you guys are ready for another document from me, but I could give you one, which is in May of 2019, they actually did a study. They did another environmental study. City of North Las Vegas did another environmental study on the land. Why did they do that? Because they were looking at expanding North 5th, where City View Park is, and there's a 1967 law that said whatever you take from a federally designated park, you must replace somewhere else. And in this plan, and here's the kicker, I thought it was just 2019, but I found that park conversation in several budgets and documents. But they did an environmental study. I shared it with the residents, made copies, gave it to the residents in 2020. And they made sure, they said, well, it looks like there's no more subsidence. That the land is somewhat stable, but it's stable enough where we know we can put barbecue pits. We know it's stable enough that we could do a full concrete bathroom. They even did a biological study about any animals or any creatures that might still be there. And I was like, wow. And they valued the vacant parcels at $1.1 million. And then there was supposed to be excess after the park was done, and they were going to go ahead and put a cell phone tower with the excess money. Now, mind you, the residents didn't know that this was happening. I shared it with them, but I was like, oh, I think we can do park space. And here's why. Because we have a study from 2019 paid for less than 3 years ago that will help support that topic. So with that, you guys, I mean, listen, you guys, I am a strong and fierce advocate for my district all the time. And so with that, I'll let you guys ask me questions. Thank you for indulging me with the timeline and me establishing this history for you guys. And I apologize. I only gave you a smidgen of what I've collected, but I have collected hundreds of documents.
Thank you so much, Senator Neal. We'll go ahead and entertain questions from committee members. Senator Severs-Gainser? No. Senator Buck?
Thank you, Vice Chair Donate. I know that through the Community Block Development Grant, I'm familiar with that because we had applied for that through CT Sewell, moved a parenting cottage on our place. And so are those expenses at all documented anywhere on where that money went for the federal monies?
Senator Dean Neal, for the record, it's my understanding the CFO is down south. Maybe he can answer those questions, but I only have what's in the publicly adopted budgets on their website.
Did you?
We asked, I could say this, there has been a FOIA request from the Boyd Law students. They believe they were going to get some of that information today, and then they were told it would be 30 days.
Senator Buck, if you want, we can perhaps have him come forward.
I'd rather have the residents testify.
First?
Well,
Okay.
And then, well, he can answer it. Let's see, let's let him answer.
Hello, can you hear me?
Please proceed.
My name is William Hardy. I'm the Finance Director for the City of North Las Vegas. I am very grateful that I have the opportunity to dispel some of these misunderstandings that we have about the budget book and actual money spent in Windsor Park. I'm here today because I got a request from Senator Neal to be here today to provide information regarding all the Windsor Park funds for the last 8 years. So I've come prepared to do so. I hope that there are handouts there to do that. I can answer questions about any money that's been spent in the last 8 years since fiscal year 2015 to 16. There are 3 dedicated funds in Windsor Park, as Senator Neal has pointed out. That is Fund 233, Fund 280, and 285. As a preliminary matter, please note that currently the city has approximately $2.5 million left in the Windsor Park funds. That amount has been basically unchanged in the last 8 years. There's only been a total of $246,000 spent since fiscal year 2015-16. Please let me explain, having the spreadsheet in front of you. First off, each year the city creates a budget for the 3 Windsor Park accounts at or below the available funds. For example, in fiscal year 2019, as Senator Neal has pointed out, the city budgeted $1.3 million in Fund 233. We budgeted $170,000 for Fund 280 and $1.1 million in Fund 285. That is, for fiscal year 19, the city budgeted $2.6 million for Windsor Park because those were the available funds at the time. However, there's only $188,000 expenses that year. That means that most of the money in Windsor Park funds was not used and could be budgeted again in the following year. I hope this clears up some of the confusion between budgeted dollars and actual expenditures that we had last time we spoke on the 13th. I want to make it very clear that the budget books, I'm very excited that those are being read and reviewed. They are budgeted numbers. They are not actual expenditures. Going back to the Windsor Park funds, Fund 233, there has not been any recorded expenses since fiscal year 2016, since before that. Fund 280 had a total of $217,000 in expenses, and Fund 285 has had a total of $29,000 of expenses. In summary, total expenditures for all 3 funds over the 8-year period totals $246,300. I have provided on a second page a list of every invoice that is included in the $246,000. In short, as you can see with the supporting documentation, we can account for every dollar that has been contributed by the feds, by the state, or the city in the Windsor Park funds. The city continues to budget expenses in these funds every year so that we have the budget capacity in case there are residents that decide to participate in the program. However, it is a voluntary program, and there has not been a lot of participation recently. In fact, the ending fund balances in these funds have actually increased due to interest income. The ending fund balance in Fund 233 is $1.3 million. The ending fund balance in Fund 285 is $1.1 million. The ending fund balance for Fund 280 is 0. The funding source for 280 was a special purpose grant from HUD that was fully depleted in fiscal year 2019. With that, I'll answer any questions that you might have, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, sir. A quick question. You know, we've had discussions as to the $4 million bond that was offered from Fannie Mae. Can you please provide a response as to where that money is and what has evolved since we received it?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, the $4 million from Fannie Mae was divided between 2 different funds. I believe it was required to do so because there were some that had to be dedicated above the poverty line and below the poverty line, so it was split into 2 different funds. That is Fund 233 and Fund 285. So the $2.5 million that we have in the existing Windsor Park funds is the Fannie Mae money. So clearly 1.5 of that money has been spent. 2.5 remains unspent.
Committee members, do you have any questions? Senator Buck, did that help?
Thank you, Chair Donate, if I may indulge a little longer. So I see here that there are, I'm assuming that a lot of these are for actually fixing up the properties. I see environmental study, which is very expensive. I'm just wondering, like, how much of this actually went to residents?
Thank you, Senator. Will Hardy, Finance Director, for the record. You're correct. If it's a voluntary program and if the residents haven't, in the last 8 years, elected, the funds aren't going to the residents. They're going to other approved and appropriate costs, demolition costs. As you can see, a lot of these are going to pay for delinquent taxes.
Senator Buck, did you have any other questions? Okay, we'll move to Senator Spearman.
So, yeah, this is, it's a voluntary program, and the residents haven't asked to be moved, but we just sat through a briefing that showed all of the discrepancies in terms of what the residents were promised and then what they got. And so for me, if you're gonna promise me $100 and the only thing you show up with is a nickel, I ain't gonna trust you no more. And so I don't buy the thing that the residents have. They haven't asked for it because all of the promises in the past have not been kept. Senator Neal, you never talked about where is DASCO? Where are they? Where are they? Yeah. Where are they? Where's DASCO? North Las Vegas, where's DASCO? Yes.
Senator Spearman, this is Will Hardy.
Hold on
Finance
just a minute,
Director.
because I
I'm
haven't
sorry.
finished. Hold on. I'm gonna give you a chance. You know, and the second thing is, you know, if I was gonna present something for someone to read, I'd probably make it more than .2 font. So if you've got somebody back at your office that can enlarge this so people can really see it, that would be great. But it is beyond my comprehension. People, it was a voluntary program. Senator Neal just outlined what happened with the people that believed the city before. That believed the city before. This $14 million is what we started off with. And so the city of North Las Vegas doesn't have $14 million to move the citizens, relocate them in a place that is very similar to what they expected they were getting, but didn't get. And we still haven't answered the question about, you know, why was their insurance canceled and nobody in the city asked the insurance companies, why did you do that? Nobody came to their rescue. And delinquent property taxes, to whom? To whom are the delinquent property taxes owed? And I'm sorry, look, this is very concerning to me because the timeline is 1966. If you know anything about history, this was the time when black folks were fighting for civil rights. And this is also just a couple of years preceding Cesar Chavez fighting for farm workers. And so there is a history already of people of color fighting for things that they were promised and they ain't never got it. Now, look, I'm not fussing at you. I'm just really irritated about the situation because 1966, and we go all the way up here to 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. And you know, if I was a resident of Windsor Park, I'd be really offended. You gonna send me a bill for property taxes? Really? You must be auditioning to be a stand-up comic. Really? I'm done.
Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So if a resident wanted to move out of Windsor Park, what would you offer them? This money sitting there, do they get a portion of money towards another house, or what can you actually offer them with the money that's there?
Thank you. Will Hardy, Finance Director. I believe the current number has not changed since, I believe it's 2004, and I believe it's $100,000.
So if someone wants to move, they get $100,000 towards their house, and their house is not resellable? No.
Senator Dina Neal, for the record, no, their house is not resellable, which is why why the bill gives a remedy for the existing homeowners that now have a mortgage, because we're not clear on how these homes were sold to them. And we have to make sure that they don't continue to raise families in these homes. If you look at that backup, if these things happen, they're still doing asbestos cleanup. So these homes were then resold to Latino families who don't know any different. And that's why the bill tries to encompass everyone, because whoever has the realtor who took advantage of these families, I don't have any kind words for the manipulation of these families, because that means they're living in a home that probably has asbestos. And these are homes that were purchased in 2016, 2017, 2018. From our documentation, we find that there are 38 existing mortgages that exist from the assessor records. And it's deeply concerning because no one has intervened to stop it.
Thank you. And just to follow up, so I don't know if the consumer advocate has purview, the attorney general has purview over this, or who does to be able to help these people, because I imagine they don't have funds to be able to fight anything, right? So that's why you're here fighting for them.
Correct.
And it's like, what portion of potentially state government can help them if they've been wronged by realtors or the city or whoever it may be.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? We'll go to Senator Buck, and then we'll go to Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Donate. When's the last time we've heard from DASCO, City of Las Vegas? Please answer that.
Senator Dina Neal, North Las Vegas.
North Las Vegas.
Thank you. Will Hardy, Finance Director, North Las Vegas. I appreciate the question. The question is when's the last time you've heard of DASCO? Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that, but I am grateful that we have an opportunity to talk about this. I believe in Senator Neal's presentation, as she's walked through, the city repeatedly has been seeking help from multiple levels of government, the feds, the state. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. We might not agree on how it needs to be addressed, but talking about how realtors, developers, there definitely needs to be something done here. And I think that the record has shown that the city officials have repeatedly been trying to seek help to get this fixed.
And another question, on your records, they don't really add up. So maybe I need to sit down with you and with Ms. Neal and try and figure out where, from year to year to year to year, there are some discrepancies. And I realize that your term has only been so much, but if we could get a clear, I guess I need a tutoring in all of those budgets the last 5, 6, 7 years. It doesn't look like it all adds up.
May I? This is Will Hardy, Finance Director. Is there a question of a specific fund? Because I have all 3 funds, I have all the years, I have every budget that's been referenced in those budget books in those 8 years, and I'll gladly walk through any particular fund you have a question on.
Mr. Hardy, so in the document that you provided for us, I think to echo the comments of my colleague, it's a little bit confusing because as we have sat through the briefing from Senator Neal, over the years, right, there's been an accumulation of funds that have been distributed to the city. And if there's revenue that's being generated since we received these funds, then where has that money accumulated towards? I mean, you only provided us the fiscal year of 2016 to 2023, but there seems to be a gap, sort of say. So, I mean, perhaps the question could also be rephrased as, so if the money has been accumulating, which it sounds like it has been, what is the total amount that has been accumulated over the years for this particular account? If you can maybe estimate, or if that's something that you can answer.
Thank you, Senator. Will Hardy, Finance Director for the city. Again, I think we need to make it very clear and understanding that the numbers in the budget book are not actuals. They're not actual expenditures. And just because we budgeted a number doesn't mean we spend it. Therefore, you can budget that same number every year. To add up or accumulate the budget dollars and assuming that there's millions of dollars that are available in these funds is inaccurate. That's just not what a budget book is. Budget books are not audited. Financial statements are audited. Financial statements have the actuals in them.
Mr.
And
Hardy.
yes, we
but
have been audited.
Not to cut you off, sir. That's not the question. The question was, what is the amount that has been generated over the years since we received the Fannie Mae bond? And what would that number be to right now? Regardless of how much we've spent, what the report that you provided us stands right now, what is the total amount that has been generated from what was transferred to us?
Thank you. William Hardy, Finance Director, for the record. If you're referring to the Fannie Mae bond, which was a $4 million bond that was separated into two funds, Fund 233 and 285, both of those funds are here on this spreadsheet. The ending fund balance in both of those funds totals about $2.5 million, meaning $1.5 million has been spent.
Sir, that is not.
$2.5 million
That
is
is not. That is not what my question is, Mr. Hardy.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Please ask it again.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, okay, let's break this down a little bit easier. What year did we receive the bond?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure. We can look that up very quickly, though.
So Senator Dina Neal, 1998. And then it was purchased, as you saw, in, what was that, February 99?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hardy, to make this question breakdown more easier for you, what has been the interest that has been generated since we received that bond?
Thank you. I don't have the interest accumulation prior to 2016, but since 2016, we have booked $117,000 in interest on that 2.5 million.
Follow-up question, why don't you have the finances before 2016?
I apologize because I was asked, Will Hardy, Finance Director for the city. We can go back and pull those numbers, but unfortunately I'm noticing a pattern here. I came last time and was asked to just be prepared for 2023, yet I was asked about 8 years. I came today, having received a call from Senator Neal's office to be prepared on this 8 years. We have the information for the 8 years, and now I'm being asked to go back 30 years before that, or 10 years before that, and find out the interest expense prior to 2016. It is information we can go and pull. It's not information that I was asked to come prepared for.
So,
Okay, thank you.
I need to say something. Senator Dina Neal, for the record. So, number one, I didn't know he was coming until 40 minutes before the hearing. We called and they said that they were unavailable, that their whole department would not be available. The City of North Las Vegas rep stopped by the office and said, oh, our CFO will be here. Now, the 8 years is what I asked for the last time. I thought, and that was a mishap between my assistant not uploading everything because it was a document that I was providing for the public and everyone. So I am not, as I said before, setting someone up. I didn't know, number one, that's why it wasn't on the agenda. We revised the agenda, took it off, because I didn't know there was going to be a presentation on the budget. It was decided at the last minute by the city, not by me. I asked, and they said they were unavailable. So we revised the agenda and took them off. I am not setting them up. I presented my presentation based on what I had planned to do, and if you look at the revised agenda, it says SB 450. It does not say a presentation from the City of North Las Vegas on budget, and I am absolutely clear about that. I am not going to allow anyone to mix words or create a narrative that is not what I said, and I think that needs to be stated, that you said you were unavailable today, and that's what I understood, is that you would not be present. And I found out at around 12 o'clock, 12:15, that you would be present.
Thank
Chair,
you.
may I respond?
Please proceed.
Oh, thank you. Will Hardy, Finance Director. Yes, Senator Neal, I apologize for the misunderstanding if there was one. I did respond to your office that I was unavailable. The city of North Las Vegas is having a Bring Your Child to Work Day, and I had signed up and volunteered to participate in that. When I found out that there was going to be a hearing on this, which was after I was contacted by your office, I cleared my schedule. I actually have one of my children here with me, watching me, in these proceedings. The rest of the children I had to send home early, and they are missing out on the activities. But I'm making every effort to do my best to give you the information you need to make a good choice here.
Senator Dina Neal for the record. So, Mr. Nakamoto, when did I schedule this hearing? What date did I know that I was going to schedule this hearing?
Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. You'll have to give me a second. I'll have to look that up. Thank you.
All right, so what we can do, Senator Dinyate, is at least roll to the residents who have come out, because the last time I didn't have the actual BDR, and then the BDR was introduced that following Monday. So if we can turn to support and have the residents down south, because we're going to lose speed.
We'll go ahead and switch the presentation at this time to testimony in support, opposition, and neutral on this bill. Once again, we are opening up the testimony for Senate Bill 450. So if you would like to testify in support of this bill, please come forward. As a reminder, there's a 2-minute allocation per person. We ask folks not to be repetitive, and if they reach over the 2-minute mark, to please submit their comments in writing to the committee staff. But we'll start here in Carson City. Is there anyone that would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 450? Please come forward.
Hi, this is Cynthia Moore. I'm the coalition coordinator for the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We're in support of SB 450. This is an environmental injustice issue that these residents are facing. And also as a realtor, to hear that the city of North Las Vegas is offering these families $100,000 is quite frankly a slap in the face to them, because a lot of homeowners right now have over $100,000 in equity in their home. And the fact that they can't sell these houses, it's just unbelievable. The median home price in North Las Vegas right now is just a little bit under $400,000. So $100,000 is not going to get them a new home. So we urge you to pass and support SB 450.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in Carson City? Let's move to Las Vegas.
My name is Pamela Neal. I'm a resident of Windsor Park. I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again. The last time we were here, we asked the financial officer of North Las Vegas where was the money. As you see today, we still can't get an answer. We need this bill passed so this thing could be resolved. We really need your help. You see what goes on with North Las Vegas. He couldn't even answer your questions. So we really need this bill passed. We're tired of dealing with this same old thing day in, day out. We get the runaround. So please, if this bill can pass, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next person, please.
Thank you, Senator Neal and committee. My name is Barbara Carter. That's Carter. Carter. I am one of the original residents of Windsor Park. I moved there in May of 1966. And I support the Senator Bill 450 because it is hope for the residents that's still there. I agree with what was just said, but that this is hope for us, and I agree for the Bill 450. And to move us as a whole, all the whole complete resident, I am in agreement of that. Because you want to, right now, if you see the documents on Windsor Park, I mean, no one wants to come through the area, not even pass through the area. So I am in agreement for the move the residents as a whole to another neighborhood. Thank you.
Name is Webster Davis. I've been in Winslow Park since '80. My father bought his home there in '66, right after they was built. And it seems hard to raise kids in something that you can't really enjoy. Lesson on your kids. I support Senator Neal's bill. She's seemed like the only one really fighting. North Las Vegas ain't fighting. I just ask if y'all can look in your heart and help pass this bill to help the residents of Winslow Park for suitable living arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there other folks that would like to come and testify in support in Las Vegas? If you can come forward, please. Let's make sure we fill in the chairs. If folks can come forward. You may begin when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Eli Valdez. I wasn't really planning on testifying today, so I apologize for not being ready, but I do appreciate your time. I'm actually a new resident of Windsor Park. Bought my house in 2019, so I was not aware of everything going on. And I just recently came back from deployment the end of last year, and then I noticed cracks and stuff around my house. So when, not sure, I wasn't home when the young lady was passing by with like flyers and stuff. So I'm new to what's going on in my neighborhood as of like last week. So this is all very shocking to me. So I do, with all this new knowledge that I'm receiving, agree with this bill. Yeah.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Yes,
When you said you purchased your home in 2019?
that is correct.
In the process, when you purchased the home, was there any disclosure or did anyone ever tell you of the situation of where were you purchasing your home?
No, none.
Well, if you don't mind, what was the value that you purchased your home?
Like 189,000, I believe, or 79, 89,000,
And
around there.
And in any time since you've lived in this home, has the city of North Las Vegas ever come? Have they sent you any notices, anything at all, or has it been strictly, as you mentioned, another encounter based on a neighbor or someone walking by that's of how you figured out? So, in essence, has the city of North Las Vegas ever contacted you as a new resident of Windsor Park?
No, not about this geographical faults and stuff. I had no idea about this. So yeah, it was when my wife had told me, because a young lady had passed by the house. I believe it was the April 13th, or that. I'm not 100% sure because I was working. But yeah, this is all new knowledge to me.
And still to this day, have they ever contacted you?
No.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Next person, please.
Hi, my name is Nancy Johnson, and I bought my home when I was 20 years old. I'm 67 years old. $100,000 is nothing. The community matters to me. We all want to stay together and fight for the bill. And we really would appreciate some help, because City of North Las Vegas, they has really done us wrong. We deserve better. We do matter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person, please.
My name is Myrtle Wilson. I'm also a resident of Windsor Park. My family and I, we moved into Windsor Park in August of 1965. There was only a few homes on Clayton Street where I live, and we've lived there long enough to see the neighborhood build up. And some of the notes that Senator Neal went over, we were all witness to that. I have, because my husband got upset and he stopped going. But I have been going to these meetings with the promises of helping Windsor Park, those that have gone to Washington with HUD to allocate so that we would have money to fix up our houses or to do what was necessary. Haven't seen a dime. The last meeting I was in at the senior citizen home on Martin Luther King and Cary, and Mr. Robinson made the statement that this is the last time we're going to make an offer of $50,000. What is $50,000? Absolutely nothing with the price of homes. The cheapest homes that you can find nowadays is $300,000. What is $1,000? Most everybody up there, we're too old to start all over again. And nobody will give you the money that you need unless you got somebody as a co-signer that they can possibly get their money, because like me and Sister Walker and the rest of us are in either our 60s or 80s. And who's going to give you money to start all over? I don't want to start all over again. No, I don't. And I don't want to leave my kids with a bill to pay, because I have taken care of everything hoping that this would help them out. So why would they want to start all over again? I don't want to start all over again. I'm too old to start all over. I don't even work anymore. Thank goodness for retirement. But anyway, I think we have been shortchanged. This $100,000, when we started having these meetings with Senator Neal, that was the first time I ever heard of $100,000 being offered. Nobody has offered us anything other than $50,000. So thanks for your attention. And I do support the bill.
Thank you so much. If there are any other folks that would like to testify in support in Las Vegas, if we can rotate in the chairs, and folks can come forward, please. And please begin when you're ready and state your name for the record.
My name is Edward McCall, MCCALL. I live at 2101 West Evans Avenue, North Las Vegas. And what I have to say have been said already. So I just want to say that I fully support the bill presented by Senator Neal. Thank you.
My name is Mercedes Davis. I'm a community organizer for Defend Our Future. We are a youth group that advocates for environmental justice, and I live about 5 minutes from Windsor Park. I just came across this issue, and even though this isn't part of what I'm officially paid for to advocate for, I thought it was a completely injustice that these people are living here, and that the city of North Las Vegas keeps claiming that they're not engaged, that they keep reaching out to them. I am the young lady that the gentleman just referenced to, and I just had put on an event for these residents to have a community discussion about this bill, and I had 50 people attend the event, and that's from canvassing the neighborhood 2 days. So if the city of North Las Vegas wanted to reach out to these people, wanted to make amends, it doesn't take that much effort, and I'm one person. And so I'm here to just stand in solidarity and say that I would like these residents to get the justice they deserve. And so I support this bill.
My name is Aisha Goins, N-A-E-S-H-A-G-O-I-N-S, and I am the vice president of the National Association for the Advancements of Colored People in Las Vegas, Nevada. I stand in solidarity with these with my community. I also stand in solidarity with Senator Neal. She has been fighting the good fight, and we want to make sure that she knows she does not stand alone, and neither does my community. And I also want to just remind everyone that this isn't just a community, this is our family. When I was in Child Haven and I was placed in foster care, I lived in Winslow Park. Winslow is what we call it. And it was some of the most happiest times, believe it or not. I was in Child Haven, in Child Protective Services, in a foster home. And the time that I lived in Winslow Park was some of the best times. We'd walk up the street to the Candy Lady, and up the hill, we'd get our Freezy cups, and I'd play in the neighborhood. And those ladies and those gentlemen that live there, we are all still friends. The Turners and the McGees, and we're all still friends. And I met them in Child Haven in a foster home in Winslow Park. And so I wanted to tell that story because I wanted to remind you that this is a community and there are futures still living there. I am certain that my friends and the people that I grew up with would like to go back to a community. And if they can't go back, they would like to go back to where the community is. And that has been snatched from them. It's been snatched from me. And I wanted to paint that picture because I think it's important for the community to understand that there is suffering today, but there was a time where that community thrived. And those young people are the us's. And we thrived in that community. And it's because of community that we thrived. And they've been ripped from that. And it's unfair. It's unjust. And as you're looking at this bill and you're looking at that, you can't put a price on future. And you can't put a price on future generations. And we don't even know the damage that has been done to the future generations of the persons who could have been raised in that neighborhood. That price cannot be spent, and that price cannot be totaled. And so as we're thinking about this and we're thinking about this community, my community, I want you to consider the importance of building community back and what that means for the future, what that means for future wealth. I support this bill, and the NAACP stands and supports this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's continue to rotate if there's anyone else in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support. I don't see anyone else in Las Vegas. We'll give one more. Oh, come on forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Ford. My father, James Goodall, purchased our home on Lydia 40 years ago. First, I do want to say thank you so much to Senator Neal for taking on this great campaign to save the neighborhood. My father purchased a home, as I said, 40 years ago, and he purchased it for us, his children. My daughter and my grandchildren now live in the neighborhood. If you ride around the neighborhood, one of the essential things is the view. If you ride around the neighborhood and go to the utmost part of it and just take a look, in the evening time, you're able to see from downtown Las Vegas all the way through the Strip. The view is extremely beautiful. The community is actually a family up there. I was just there a few days ago with one of the neighbors, Cornell Blanche, who is extremely helpful in keeping the community clean. And so they treat it such as a family and not just somewhere to live. If you take a look at the homes that are there and the families that still live there, just ride around and take a look at some of the homes and how they have been dilapidated and how the city of North Las Vegas has completely neglected the community. But the families that are still there, they're still there. They hold their pride there. There are sentimental values that are there. They've raised their children, their grandchildren. As I say, my grandchildren still live there now. So I completely support the bill. The young lady that was just sitting here who has taken on and had 50 members, families just come out to support. I thank her as well for those who actually, and she's much younger than Windsor Park is. I don't even think she was born when Windsor Park, the homes were being built there. But just to take on the effort is such a grandstand for us, and we appreciate that. So I completely support the bill, asking that you would look deeply in. One of the things I also would ask, just come down and ride through the neighborhood. Take a look at the neighborhood. Get out of your car, talk to some of the family members that are still living there. You hear us, but to come down and actually see the families that are still there, and then the children that are out in the evening time playing in the yard. I know my grandchildren still play in the yard, and but we have to be careful where they are when they're riding their bikes, the cracks that are in the sidewalk as well. So I completely support the efforts that Senator Neal has taken on, and I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in Las Vegas? Can you please come forward? I see someone coming forward. Please state your name for the record. Can you turn your mic on?
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Jorge Flores, and I purchased a house at Windsor Park in 2008 for $110,000, and 15 years later, they're offering $100,000. That's not right. We pay with hard-working money for the house, and I think we deserve more. And I would like to thank Senator Neal for helping the community. I think it's very nice of her, and I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas? BPS, is there anyone in virtually?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 450, press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller last 3 digits 827, press star 6 to unmute yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Tamika Washington. I am the niece of Minnie Bradley. She once resided at 2625 Stanton Drive. And I want to first thank Senator Neal and Senator Spearman for their comments. This is very near to me because my aunt was forced out of her home. So when we talk about the $50,000, we have to talk about the people whose homes were taken by eminent domain, and they were forced to sign to then move into somewhere else. My aunt is 80 years old. Miss Ethel is 86 years old with 30-year mortgages right now today. So when we're talking about potentially relocating people and zeroing out those mortgages and things like that, I agree with them for helping the ones that are there. But what I'm upset about most is the people who were forced out of their homes. Ms. Ethel bought her home in 1969. My aunt bought her home in 1968. Ms. Velma at 2701 bought her house in 1966. These homes were paid in full. These are women who did not have a mortgage payment in 1999, in 2000. They had zero mortgage payment. Now we're talking about 86-year-old, 80 years old, 85-year-old women who are stuck paying mortgage payments. Then to add another caveat to that, the city of North Las Vegas is questionable because one of the things was in Senator Neal's research, she said that the city of Las Vegas gave money. Why is it that then the residents were only forced to live within the city of North Las Vegas's jurisdiction? So that's an issue for me. Then, because of the subpar building requirements, my aunt then purchased another home because she didn't have a choice. And she has $51,000 in plumbing issues because of the city of North Las Vegas. She went before Mayor Goins, and Mayor Goins told her, I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing I can do about it. When they said it was their fault. My aunt has a septic tank in her front yard in the city of North Las Vegas, right at the corner of Cheyenne and Revere. So I want to know what can be done for that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lauren DeGrotto. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Lois Almquist, deceased, and my sister, Sharon DeGrotto. Thank you, Senator Neal, for your efforts. They're valiant, and I hope that you are able to achieve passage of this bill. My sister is the most recent victim of North Las Vegas, and that the city removed her from the property 2 weeks ago, demolished her property, and have just basically left her hanging out to dry. They have had a number of different practices of intimidation, manipulation of my mind and my sister, as well as my mother. In 2015, she brought that property to take care of my mother who had Alzheimer's disease. In 2019, she had surgery on her foot and became, she went off the wagon. She had been in recovery for a decade. The surgery, they gave her opioids. She became addicted and has since lost her capacity to function in a healthy way. As a result, in 2020, at the beginning of the epidemic, my mother came to live with me in Salt Lake City, and my sister was left in a condemned home because she was terrified of what was going on in her environment. She didn't know when she bought the property that she couldn't make repairs. She's mechanically inclined. And so she was constantly trying to fix the pipes and fix the sewage and fix the everything. And she didn't know that she couldn't because no one, when she bought that house, told her that it was on shifting sand. I truly support this bill. I also hope that the results of the property being demolished prior to the July 1st, 2023 deadline where residents should be intact will be waived in her case if this bill is passed. Thank you.
Chair Neal and members of the committee, my name is Linda Stout, Lindastout. I'm a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Legislative Committee. On behalf of the club, the world's largest environmental volunteer organization, and our more than 30,000 members and supporters statewide, I am speaking in support of SB 450. The story of Windsor Park is heart-wrenching. Overpumping of groundwater caused this 1960s subdivision of roughly 300 predominantly Black families to crack, buckle, and sink, making their homes uninhabitable. One of the Sierra Club's missions is to protect and restore the quality of the natural and human environment. SB 450 is an environmental justice bill that establishes a program for relocating the remaining 90 residents whose homes and surrounding community have sustained irreversible damage. According to the United States Geological Survey, more than 17,000 square miles across the nation have been impacted by subsidence, and 80% of known cases are the result of unsustainable land and water use practices. Subsidence from groundwater depletion is often gradual and widespread, but in the Windsor Park subdivision, major fault lines and fissure zones exacerbated the subsidence. Since 1989, and as a result of Windsor Park, the Department of Housing and Urban Development requires special subsidence hazard assessments for property near known subsidence features. Recent work to build a warehouse on nearby undeveloped land have raised concerns for the tax-paying residents of Windsor Park who have been denied homeowners insurance, property improvements, and live amid vacant lots. I've been there. If their community cannot be restored, then we are obligated to relocate their community. For these reasons, we urge you to support SB 450. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator Donate and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Quentin Savoy. That's Quentin. Last name S like Sam, A like Apple, V like Victor, WOIR. I'm the president of the Las Vegas NAACP, and we are in full support of Senate Bill 450. The NAACP was created over 100 years ago to protect and advance civil rights for people of color, communities of color, and housing was at the forefront of making sure that those rights were protected. The way that the residents and the families in Windsor Park are being treated is a civil rights violation. And it's truly sad, though appreciated, Senator Neal, that she had to speak for upwards of an hour with notebooks and receipts of evidence of how the city has been complicit in how these families have been mistreated. We don't bat an eye. We don't stop long enough to think about propping up a new Del Taco, a new Red Lobster, or having protracted conversations about bringing new sports teams to our city. But when it comes to the foundations of taking care of one another, our leadership is failing in the city of North Las Vegas. And quite honestly, not to conflate the issues, but I wonder if this would be as big of an issue as it is if we had a stronger and expanded city council where there could be greater representation for families that are in the margins, for families that are overlooked, for families that have just been thrown away, that Senator Neal and the families that are at Grant Sawyer right now and the NAACP have said, that is enough. We are done with overlooking these families who need our help and our support. This is a civil rights issue. This is an environmental justice issue. And this is a racial justice issue, because if this existed anywhere else in the Valley, it would have been handled already. I strongly urge your support, and thank you so much for hearing this bill today. And Senator Neal, there's a special place in heaven for you. Thank you for your courage.
If you have just joined us and would like to testify in support of SB 450, press star 9 to take your place in the queue or raise your hand in the Zoom window. Caller, you're unmuted.
Hello, my name is Leslie Turner, for the record, calling in support of SB 450. And I just basically want to keep it brief because I feel like a lot has been said. And just that, we really have to take care of community. And I would hope that the current residents and also past residents and their families that are still alive that also could benefit from some reparations in this regard can also benefit from this bill. But I am in support, and thank you, Senator Neal, for bringing this forward.
Good afternoon. This is Frank Fritz. I am speaking in support, and I strongly support Senate Bill 450, and I urge the committee to vote for it. About 30 years ago, City of North Las Vegas employee, Mr. James Hobby, asked the Nevada Ways and Means Committee for funds, quote, to allow the Windsor Park families to reestablish their living conditions to the standard that once existed in Windsor Park. SB 450 will fulfill that promise 30 years later. The state of Nevada and the city of North Las Vegas have long recognized their duty to help the families of Windsor Park after the ground subsided. They worked with the federal government to rehabilitate homes, build new homes, offer grants, and relocate about 90 families. But today, 90 families still remain. They were not offered new or rehabilitated homes, or they did not, or they refused them, as we heard, for shoddy workmanship. They could not afford to move from their homes using a $50,000 or $100,000 grant. This bill is fair, it is just, and it will fulfill the promise that Mr. Hobby made to this legislature 30 years ago. Thank you very much.
Chair, there are no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. Anyone willing to testify in opposition to this bill, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair Neal and committee members. My name is Candace Townsend, and I represent the City of North Las Vegas. Although I am here in opposition of SB 450, I want to first thank Senator Neal for bringing this bill forward. Despite this opposition, we are thankful the language of this bill clearly recognizes that the geological faults and groundwater withdrawal issues in Windsor Park are not suitable for the rebuilding of houses. We see this as a positive step and brings the bill sponsor in alignment with extensive federal, state, and local scientific findings. Unfortunately, this bill has not addressed the important issue of what happens when the residents are unwilling to move. Since the 90s, the City of North Las Vegas has administered a federal program that successfully relocated over 80 families. However, despite this program, many of the residents of Windsor Park chose to remain in their homes for various reasons. Also, SB 450 is not fiscally responsible and unnecessarily shifts the financial burden historically borne by the federal government onto the state and the city. Approximately 90% of the $14.5 million in funds for the relocation of the residents came from the federal government. The federally funded Windsor Park Housing Revitalization Project has been successful, which in part is why of the approximately 240 original single-family residents, only 92 private homes remain. As you know, Nevada consistently ranks worst in the nation for the amount of federal tax dollars coming back into our state. SB 450 is an example of unnecessarily placing the burden on Nevadans instead of working together to secure more federal dollars to continue funding what was successful in the past. This is why the city has been working with the federal government and has been asking the state for years to help with these efforts. As the mayor said when we learned of the existence of this bill in the media, we are thrilled this issue is finally getting addressed at the state level. However, SB 450 unnecessarily creates an untested plan. The residents of Windsor Park deserve decisive, well-thought-out action with proven results, and we look forward to partnering with Senator Neal and all of the Windsor Park residents to find an equitable solution so everyone can move forward. Thank you.
Excuse me, Vice Chair.
Quick question. Thank you. You said that the city has been asking the state to help for years?
Yes, ma'am.
And we saw several instances where the state was trying to get the money, but we didn't see any collaboration, if you will. So what I would ask is, can you all provide specific instances when the city was there and the state was not?
Candace Townsend, for the record, absolutely, I will get that information to you.
And I think we need to get it ASAP, because if that is indeed the truth, then that information is not hard to find. Okay?
Candace Townsend, once again, for the record, I will absolutely get that to you as soon as possible.
About 24 hours, they should be able to do that. We're in a technological age, and if it is indeed there.
Yeah, I will get it to you in 24 hours.
Yeah, if it's indeed there, it's just a
Yes,
matter
ma'am.
of, it's a bunch of keystrokes, that's all.
Will do.
Because right now, I don't see, and the records that Senator Neal shared with us, these are city council records, the City of North Las Vegas records.
I will get you the records, ma'am.
Thank you. The
Yeah,
other
no
thing
problem.
that I want to ask, you said that the residents who were there decided not to, and because of whatever reason. We also saw in these documents where some people trusted the city to do the right thing, and that trust was breached. So I know that people prepare statements, et cetera, but I would like the record to show, Madam Secretary, I would like the record to show that there is conclusive proof that the residents did not act because they did not trust. Okay? And I'm so glad that someone representing the city of North Las Vegas has come to the table, and maybe there's some questions that you might be able to answer. You've been in government affairs much longer than Ms. Candace. How long have you been with the city?
6 months.
6
Candace
months,
Townsend,
okay.
for the record.
Yeah, 6 months. So they threw you in the fire first, right? Okay.
I can handle it, ma'am.
We're in opposition testimony right now.
I'm done.
Yes, thank you. And I know that there are conflicting meetings, so let's continue on with opposition testimony. We would greatly appreciate it. So, anyone else in opposition to this bill?
Jared Luke, for the record, City of North Las Vegas. Continuing, and I want to thank Candace for her statement and putting that on the record. To Senator Neal, Chair, Vice Chair, I appreciate this bill. I really do. And I know that may be hard to believe. I've been with the city for 3 or 4 years now. I wasn't here when this happened. And I am in full support, and I agree that how Windsor Park even came about is an evil that we probably is a long conversation to discuss, right? But I want to remind this committee in my opposition to not what the bill is attempting to try and do, but how the bill is written. Let me clear that up. The city of North Las Vegas was in 2013 was in fiscal receivership. We didn't have the money to do anything. We were in arrears. Our bonding was junk bond. We couldn't, had we come to this body 5 years ago to try and remedy Windsor Park or anything within the city of North Las Vegas in this manner by stripping 20 million out of a general fund or bonding for 20 million from our bonding capacity, we would have been laughed out of this building. We didn't have that capacity. We are grateful for the work that Senator Neal has done. We're grateful that now that there is recognition that the soil condition, the aquifer pumping and recharge, the technical issues, the geotechnical issues that reside in Windsor Park and across this valley, microfissures and whatnot. But it's not a situation that, or a conversation that we can fix right away. And I know I'm up on time, Vice Chair, and I apologize, but we're grateful for the conversation. We're grateful to find a solution to a very complex and emotional situation. Thank you for your time.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Why has the city failed to instruct or provide some level of language or notification to the residents that moved in since the time that you started working there?
Jared Luke, for the record, I see everybody sitting up straight. It's actually a really good question, and I will check with legal on that, whether or not there are, because that's a good question. There's disclosure laws in the state. I don't know if realtors have waived those rights with buyers. I don't know if the investors that have, there are some corporate investors that have bought land that are leasing those homes out for profit. That's a very good question, and I'd like to know that answer as well. As far as the city's response to that, what we can and cannot do, I'd have to check with legal to see where the limit of liability is on that, sir.
And do you have a plan right now to address any homeowners that could be potentially moving in? Say if their home gets sold within the next month, do you have a plan in place right now?
Jared Luke, for the record, there is I would say, a working plan. We have been very involved with the federal government, the Biden administration, and our federal delegation to try and figure out how we can take a second look or a third look or a fourth look, however many times that Senator Neal did a great job of running down the history of what the regs are on how this plan, this federal plan even came about in the 90s, how those regs and language can be updated to current market so that we can actually walk in and have a plan that makes sense. Again, to Senator Neal, this is all a conversation that we're glad is finally happening so that we can find a solution to a very complex issue.
Thank you. Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I have a question about some folks have been able to buy the property when the houses are not supposed to be habitable. It almost sounds, it sounds like they are habitable, but they're not secure. I'm just wondering if their title should be flagged. Are they still owned? Does the city own any of them, or are they owned privately so they still have the right to sell them? I guess that's the starting point. If they own property, they have the right to sell them, and if you flag their title, then potentially it's a taking. So I think you have to be aware of that. But I'm not sure how a realtor or someone can sell those properties, even personally, if they're either not habitable or they're not safe.
Jared Luke, for the record, Senator, I appreciate that question because you're 100% right, and that's what I mentioned before to Senator Doñate is we have to look at, and I'm not the attorney in the case here, the city attorney, so I'm not going to speak on that. We have to look at what the limit of liability is. Can we flag title without it being a taking? You're exactly right. So we need to look at that. As far as flagging properties and how are people able to buy properties if they're inhabitable, the city, from my understanding, is not selling properties that we have taken in this relocation effort in the past. There are vacant lots that the city owns that we have either purchased through a tax take back from county or through the relocation processes or procedures in the past where the home has been demolished in the city or the lot is owned by the city as the administrator of these federal funds.
Thank you. Senator Buck.
Thank you, Vice Chair Donate. So my colleagues stole two of my questions, but the third one I have is we're no longer in receivership, right? So what's the plan going forward? Because obviously you have this community, and I don't know, I just get really angry that this has been allowed, and I agree with my colleague. So I just wondered, what's the plan going forward? Because we're no longer in a receivership. Fiscally, looks like the city's doing better. We need a plan.
Jared Luke, for the record, yes, ma'am, I agree. And I agree with your entire sentiment. I think that if you had a conversation with most of the management and staff of the city of North Las Vegas, this isn't something, Windsor Park is not a situation that we are turning a blind eye to. It's not a situation where, I've had a chance to meet many of these residents, and I will be completely honest with you, they're some of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. So I want to clarify that the North Las Vegas city management, the North Las Vegas staff, and obviously council is not turning a blind eye to this. It is a complex problem that requires a solution. I can't just walk into a community and say, I now have dollars. I have the ability to bond. I'm going to take my bond rating out for a test drive and I'm going to do it here, right? I'm still paying dollars back to PILT. There's still some hair on the dog, if you will, even though North Las Vegas has made considerable strides in increasing its tax base. But I have to be very sensitive to property rights. And while we've had many conversations with residents of Windsor Park, some have the desire to move, to relocate. Some have expressed that they just want their home fixed. They want their home repaired. Some have expressed concern of why don't we just rebuild? And I think now, to Ms. Candace and her testimony and to Senator Neal, we're now finally to this point where I think everybody's on the same page. You can't rebuild in Windsor Park. The soil condition is deplorable. But I can't walk in and say, look, I don't feel that Windsor Park is habitable, and then force somebody to move. Because that would mean the residents of Windsor Park have less property rights than folks living near a railroad track or under a bridge.
Well, it's just sad to me that people can still buy these houses. And we heard from a gentleman who just bought the house a few years ago who was never informed or ended up buying oceanfront property, not on the ocean,
Jared, look for the record, and Senator, I agree, not to interrupt you, but I would like to have a conversation to see what disclosure issues there were. Was there a waiver? Was the seller of the property?
Where's the builder?
Okay.
So,
right, was all
okay.
of that? Yes.
We can continue. Are there, Senator Spearman? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This is just a real quick question because
ma'am.
I hear it often how North Las Vegas came back from almost receivership. But the thing that I don't hear is how the state legislature orchestrated and developed the plan to get North Las Vegas to live according to their means during a time when they were using enterprise funds for the general budget, and we're not supposed to be. So I want to put that in the record because 2013, the city didn't do it. It was the state that said, this is what you're going to do. And that's always lost when people brag about it coming back. But the other thing that I would ask, you said, so the soil at Windsor Park is not stable, but I understand that there are plans to build a light industrial park right next to Windsor Park. And so why is that Windsor Park is not stable, but the land adjacent to it is stable? Just a question. You don't have to answer it.
If I may, Jared, Luke, for the record, it's actually, I'm not a very smart person, so I love picture books. And so to explain that scenario, it's actually very simple. Based on the geological, or the geological studies, however you want to put it, it has been found that if you over-excavate considerably, 10, 15, 20 feet, and then you build a foundation that spans over 100,000 square feet, it can withstand the ebb and flow. It's akin to a tanker in the ocean versus a tugboat in the ocean. A little tiny tugboat's going to feel those waves a lot more than a tanker. And to the question of the legislative record, you're right. In 2013, I believe it was 2013, the city of North Las Vegas had devised a plan to pull itself out of state receivership, and we came and asked the state legislature to work on a program with us. That plan was presented by the city of North Las Vegas, and I am very grateful that the state legislature at that time approved that plan to move forward so that the city of North Las Vegas could utilize.
I just want to
PILT
add to the
forward.
record that that Speaker Kirkpatrick was in charge, and she led the way on that. Last thing I'm going to say, and you don't have to answer this right now, but so we've gotten up past 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
But we still don't know why they weren't moved in 2000 and 2004.
So
that's it. I'm done.
The request that I would be is to follow up with that response. I did want to clarify that
Yes, Vice
the
Chair.
legislative operations is moving to room 1214, which is a separate room. And I think that concludes opposition testimony, unless if we have anyone in Las Vegas or virtually. BPS, is there anyone virtually in opposition?
Yes, Chair. To testify in opposition of SB 450, press star 9 to take your place in the queue or raise your hand in the Zoom window. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. Anyone here in neutral on this bill? Anyone in Las Vegas and anyone virtually?
To testify neutral to SB 450, press star 9 to take your place in the queue now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify neutral.
Chair Neal, closing remarks.
Thank you, Senator Dina Neal, represented Senate District 4. I think I have so many thoughts. What I find interesting about this conversation is that I understand the receivership. I was in the legislature when the receivership was going on. It doesn't speak to post-1998. It doesn't speak to the condition of North Las Vegas in year 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, 2007 in regards to what they could have done then. There are still question marks on when we talk about the complexity. I put in the minutes, the complexity of the issue was understood and addressed and talked about in 91, 92, 98, and 99. It was relocation, right? The families at that time, yes, they were still not interested in all of them leaving because they were still engaged in advocacy and trying to fight for what they felt was proper and what was the right amount of money in order for them to move. That was not a selfish endeavor on their part to try to seek their American dream to be sustained. In addition to that, it was stated that this bill isn't the right solution and that the state has not been at the table. I put in the legislative records. The state was at the table and gave money. Yes, they went to Congress and they asked for money. I have been hearing about this HUD conversation and speaking to the reps. I have asked, when I talked to Cortez Masto about Windsor Park, she didn't even know what I was talking about. And I sent her staff the video, the documentary, 2 weeks ago. Congressman Horsford looked into the issue, but there has never been a conversation of delivering money. My issue has been, how long should they wait? I put in the record the 760 of CBDG. I also put in the record the $250K that came from the state that was then matched with CBDG by a request from the city, and then the $220,000. The rest of the money is federal. I've been hearing this narrative since I took this on with Boyd Law, that let's go back to the feds for the money. However, as I put in the record, there is a question about the effectiveness and efficiency in which that money was allocated and then used for the benefit of those residents. I have also had community meetings with the residents, and they said as long as they're moved as a census, community census group, except for Miss Walker. And Miss Annie Walker, and I understand her sentiment and her position because she has been there. Her husband, he has a park by Greater Faith Church, which is right on the hill of the community. So her sentimental value is deeper, and why I put in the bill for the land to revert back to park space, so just in case she's still there and she doesn't decide to move with her daughter, that she would not be, there would not be reverse condemnation against her property on the hill off of Evans, that it would then be secured with at least the reversion so it would come to park space. And I talked to the residents about that. And then they understood that I was going to make sure that there was not a way for it to revert back to the city, and that those lots would then be turned into park space, which would then hopefully protect Greater Faith Church, the park, Prentice Walker Park, that is on the Hill. And so I think it's disingenuous to come to the table and say about time that the state moved. The state has been moving. And then to say, oh, but not this money, not our money. I'm like, it's taxpayer money in general. They're paying taxes. You literally, the testimony said, we're taking the federal allocation dollars and paying their tax deficient lien with the federal money. I want to know, city attorney, is that legal? Is that one of the proposed uses? Do the residents know, did they consent for that? I also want to know that when we look at these varying funds, and I'm pulling, and there, you know, whatever somebody's saying, budget book, actual, expended, the variation of numbers, I really do think that what I've seen, and this is historical, play on words is a real thing. Play on facts is a real thing. I found it interesting that I could put that much record in a legislative hearing from 66 all the way up, and there's still a question on the complexity of an issue that was addressed under Mr. Hobby, that was fully explained not only to Congress in 1995, because there was a plan. It was actually very specific. Then there was a plan reiterated to the legislature. So you have, if there is a plan, if there's some magical, now I want to do something, then let the residents know, because we're not clear on that. We have engaged in conversation since 2019 on this issue. Literally. And it has been, they're too expensive, which is what I'm hearing is a reiteration now, because they're like, but I don't want to give our general fund. But what was suspect for me was that you wanted to give general fund, and that's in conflict, and I've said this in the media, on the 73 acres, which is up the street, the Texas Station land. But yet in the documents provided to finance and that I have in my possession, in their application, they have 40 million of general fund, city general fund. They still have ARPA, they still have HUD. But when it was brought up, right, about are you purchasing these 73 acres for affordable housing? No. And when I asked business and industry, well, it's a provisional award. But there was a clear application that said, we're seeking this. We need 10 million from the state in order to buy it. And now it's an omission. Now it is, that wasn't our intent, but there's been no amendment to the application. There's been no withdrawal of the application. You want to come to the table and say, I don't have the 20 million, but you have it for what you want. You have it for what you want to do. Your heart goes out for these families. And when I talk to them, they haven't seen you. They're not the kind to make up stories. They don't have a lot of time to make up stories. They just say it like it is. And I listen. And I'm getting real tired of the omissions. I'm getting real tired of the recharacterization of words, of facts, and omitting the actual truth. I've been playing this game for a really, really long time. I've been in this building since 2011, and one thing I'm absolutely crystal clear on, I do bring proof of what I am saying. And I lay the record out so you are clear that the legislative record is what I say is backed up with a document. But I cannot say the same for the other side. And I am unwilling. They want to work together? Come off 20 million. I'm passing this bill. I have the votes. I'm not playing. And you can take it for what it is, but I'm telling you that you keep running this narrative, well, finally the state's in. It's now in the legislative minutes and recorded on YouTube that the state has been in. You're the only one that's been out. Keep recharacterizing words. Keep playing word games, and we're going to have a problem. Because I am not willing to sacrifice another year on this mystical plan that supposedly exists, but yet you didn't produce it in 2019 when they came and voted against the warehouse, the first warehouse. There was no plan. I have conversation from minutes that I could pull right now where it was stated on the record, it's their problem. And I went back and checked it after LaShona Wesley told me about it, and I was like, well, let me go look at it and watch it for myself, because maybe, you know, she heard him wrong. And that was last year. So you can play games, and I understand that this whole thing is about my reputation and how, you know, nobody wants to look bad and nobody wants to be the villain. I'm not saying you're a villain, but what I'm saying is that you have neglected these families. They are aware of it. It is in evidence. It is proven. And you still want to duck and dodge and recharacterize language, recharacterize literally city council minutes. How do you recharacterize what is written and signed and adopted? Now you're trying to tell us that what you see with your lying eyes is not true. Believe what I tell you. Are you kidding? We're not enemies, but I'm on the side of citizens in North Las Vegas. And I don't know a single citizen who's met me, who I have stood by, who would say any different. I have been dogmatic since I got in the building. Will remain dogmatic for these families. I will remain dogmatic on the issues that matter, because this is justice. And I swear to you, I am warning that if you continue with this recharacterization of truth, because I've been real nice, I let you slide on all of these omissions, but I'm not going to let you do it anymore. And if you want to see what the fearless Dina looks like, oh, she's getting revved up. She's getting ready to show up immediately, because this is not the fearless Dina. This is the one that has enough courage to put the truth in the record and let you come to the table. I asked Pamela Goins Brown if she would co-present this bill, and her response was, I need to read the language first. She got the BDR. Then she told me, well, why am I just now getting it? And I'm like, I got it at 3:20. You got it at 6 p.m. Are you kidding? I've been in committee all day. This isn't no game. I shared it with you when I got time to share it with you in the same day within 3 hours. Run game. Keep lying. Keep omitting the truth. Keep hiding. The residents know exactly who you are, how you've behaved, and what you've shown them. I put it in the minutes. It's here. Why are we recharacterizing actual documents and then playing games? I don't need no pat on the back. What I need is for you to sign your name up for, I am going to take care of my citizens, poor, black, marginalized, and Latino citizens who purchase homes unknowingly, and say that I will always make sure that they're going to be there and I'm going to take care of them. That has not been the narrative. That has not been the narrative. Now you come to the table because I bring the bill. I've been trying to work with you for a minute. You didn't care, and you were too expensive. You would have never brought a bill to this legislature for these families. And if you say that you did or would, I got 25 years of record that it was the legislature who brought bills for appropriations. So am I pissed off? Yes. Because I'm not going to play these word games and these omissions anymore. Omission is the same level as deceit, and I'm not doing it anymore. You can run and hide. You can have somebody pay $100, run against me in 24, no problem. Because one thing I know for sure, I have a lot of people behind me. And even if I got $500, which is the way I ran in the first time, $5,000 and sweep the race, I'll do it again. So I'm not playing any games anymore, and I'm tired. And all I want to do is serve families. All I want to do are help these 90 families who are living with asbestos. And you have the audacity to come to the table, you working out a plan. Since when? 1989? Stop recharacterizing the truth and spinning it for your own benefit, and have enough courage to tell the truth about what is really going on in your position in it. That's real leadership. Stop hiding and tell the truth, and have enough courage to take the heat and the criticism. Because I take it every day. You hide from criticism, but it is yours to have. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, just before you close, I mentioned a bill earlier that would set the record straight. It's Assembly Bill 503 from the 2013 legislature that actually devised the plan to pull North Las Vegas out of possible receivership. An act, the Legislative Council, an act relating to local financial administration, revising temporary provisions governing the use by a local government of money in an enterprise fund, requiring the Committee on Local Government Finance to adopt certain regulations, providing a penalty, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. And so that's how North Las Vegas got moved away from receivership. The state stepped in and and it's authored by the former Speaker, now Commissioner Marilyn Kirkpatrick. That's a part of the record.
Thank you so much. Before I close the hearing, I want to thank my colleague, Senator Neal, and the residents of your district that showed up as a testament of your work. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought over the last years for this conversation to even exist. You know, I've seen the social media posts about, you know, whether or not folks turn a blind eye. We turned a blind eye. I mean, there were residents that purchased a home not too long ago. So we have failed. We continue to fail, and it's time to address it. So thank you so much for your courage, and I'll go ahead and close this hearing and turn it back to Chair Neal.
Thank you. Members, I know we don't have Senator Buck. She actually was catching a flight. I wanted to vote this bill out today if folks feel comfortable moving this SB 450. So I want to make a motion to move SB 450 as a do pass motion in its current form. Do I have a first from Senator Duniate, a second from Senator Spearman, all in favor of moving SB 450? Aye. Aye. So the motion passes. We'll mark Senator Buck absent. I know she wanted to. She told me she cares about this issue, but she'll have a chance to vote on it when it comes to the floor. So thank you. So it passes with 4 of the members, and we will go ahead. Well, we have to do public comment. So let me open up for public comment. Is there anyone here in Carson City for public comment? Oh. So at BPS, is there anyone on the line for public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, press star 9 or raise your hand in the Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Senator Neal, I just want to say I thank you for your passion for the community. I also wanted to thank you for basically calling Mayor Goins out for her foolishness in the handling of everything when it comes to Windsor Park. Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sorry, Chair. I just removed them and went to the next person.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
Yes, one moment.
Hello? Hello, my name is Tori Holiday, and my father was Pastor Bill Miller. And I'm so proud of you, Dina Neal, and I thank you for all that you have done for us. And I know that he will be proud. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tamika Washington again. For the record, I'm not sure if you heard me the first time, but I just wanted to say thank you, Senator Neal, for your passion when it comes to the residents and previous residents of Windsor Park. Again, my aunt, Minnie Bradley, was a homeowner there, 2625 Stanton Drive, who was forced out of her home. And I want to say thank you for basically calling Pam Goins out on the foolishness that is the city of North Las Vegas. Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we will go ahead and adjourn Senate Committee on Revenue.